Hi guys, and welcome to this webinar for leash reactive dogs. We're gonna talk about everything. We're gonna talk about the most important parts of leash reactivity. And I love this topic because it's such a difference as soon as the dog gets more comfortable with encounters. And so let's dive in. I'm gonna introduce myself, just for those of you who don't know me yet. And that's me. And the little fluffy dog is Sammy. And he was my first dog, and I still have him, so it's fine. But he was very reactive to dogs, to people, and he was scared of a lot of things, including insects and stuff like that, so that was tricky. But with him, I started working on leash reactivity because his threshold was about 200 meters, so he reacted when a dog came any closer than that. For people, it was a little easier, but not much. So nobody was ever allowed to touch him, of course, and we have achieved so much, and it was actually pretty fun training. So alright, so that's why this is such an important topic for me, and so he got me into this. And as soon as I started working with leash reactivity and fear topics, I also volunteered in shelters and rescue organizations, and became a foster mom for difficult dogs. And there was just this need to learn more. And so I got my education, I got my certificate in Austria, and I started working with my own company in 2018 because I didn't want to just leave it in Austria and Germany. I started an English online company because I just wanted to present this gift of understanding the dog and just switching from horrible walks to very nice walks all over the world. So this is where Brave Dog Training Online came from. And of course, experience is very important with every kind of work you do. So I started working in a dog hospice. So this was a place where old dogs got adopted, and they lived in a group, and it was just dogs from the age of 10 up. So really old dogs with different sicknesses, illnesses, and quirks, of course. Old dogs are kind of like old people. They are every individual is just awesome, and they're really cute. So alright, so that was all about me. And today we're gonna talk about how does a dog get leash reactive? So what are the causes of that? And what are the differences between causes and triggers? So a cause will always be something that's originally the reason why your dog is reactive, and the trigger is the thing that lets him escalate in the situation. Of course, we're going to talk about escalation and the 5 Fs, what those are, we will discuss later. So, what do we have for possibilities for training? And of course, you get a little bonus at the end. So, causes. Some of those are underlying and some of those are just always present and very obvious. And the most important one, I would say, is health-related issues. It doesn't have to be a disease, it doesn't have to be a broken bone, but it can be something very, very subtle. So maybe your dog is walking a little funny. Maybe your dog is scratching just a little bit too often. Maybe your dog has diarrhea or some kind of tummy ache or something like that, or a headache. Dogs can get headaches, and of course we can't see them. So whenever your dog is acting a little weird, and it's difficult when you adopt a dog and you don't know what the original character of the dog is and the original behavior, what's normal for this dog. But whenever something strikes you as weird, you should get it checked out. I know it's expensive, but if you spend a lot of time and effort and money on training and there is a health issue behind all this, it's really sad, because you not really wasted, but you spent all this and it would have been a lot easier to just change the health issue. So whenever you see something weird, get your dog checked out. Of course, sleep deprivation, too little rest, or no relaxation time, or just too little relaxation time can also be an issue. Very often we see that in young dogs, because they haven't learned how to relax and how to rest enough as a puppy. And when the hormones strike the brain, the dog just becomes insane. So those are dogs who are just always running around, always trying to play. Very often there are some bitey issues, not in an aggressive way, but just overexcitement all the time. And those dogs can't contain themselves, so they just escalate in every situation they get in. Also, very often a cause of any reactive behavior and sometimes fearful behaviors is the alone time when you are at work. And if the dog is very loud and very noisy and vocalizes everything, and you have neighbors, then it's kind of obvious and you will know it very soon. But there are dogs who just suffer in silence. They lay somewhere in your home and they are just very afraid because they don't know if you're coming back, and they don't feel comfortable alone, and so they really suffer, but they don't make any noises, so the neighbors can't complain, and you won't find out unless you take a camera and film them. But we will come to that later. Of course, a dog that is stressed out in such an extent is more likely to react to any kind of trigger because the stress level is just too high, and therefore just a little thing is enough to make him explode. Maybe you know that from yourself if you are working for an exam or an evaluation at work or something like that. Your stress level is just higher, and if somebody annoys you just a little bit, you might get a little snippy. And for the dogs, it's the same. Of course, every kind of fear and punishment-based training method is a cause of higher stress levels and therefore more likeliness to cause reactivity. And of course, whenever your dog doesn't have any experiences with other dogs, or whenever I say dog, it's the same for whatever your dog's reacting to. It can be a human, a horse, whatever. Or if your dog has made some bad experiences. So, bad experiences, especially fear-related, generalize very easily. So, for example, your dog had an encounter with a big black dog, and he felt uncomfortable in the situation. He got scared. And if you don't have another big black dog where your dog can immediately make good experiences or already has good experiences, he may generalize his fear experience to every big black dog. And if we are not aware of that, it may generalize to every black dog or every big dog. And the more we wait, the more the dog generalizes to maybe every dog or every animal. So this is something we should be aware of and try to intervene very soon. The underlying emotion behind the reactivity or the companion emotion is either frustration or fear or both. So for young dogs, most of the time it's frustration because there is a barrier in the leash and they can't greet other dogs. So they get frustrated and then they escalate. For fear, we will talk about this a little more detailed in a few minutes. But with fear, it's kind of the same. They have a barrier and they can't leave the situation, so they escalate. And because they have no coping strategies, so they don't know what to do in the situation, these emotions turn into rage. They are just so angry that they can't leave the situation and that the situation is just so uncomfortable that they start yelling. And yes, this is very similar to what happens to us. And of course, we are all mammals, so yeah, it is very similar. So, bad experiences very often happen in puppy play groups. Of course, puppy groups are really important, and if it's a good puppy group, then your dog will learn so many so important things. But there are puppy groups where the trainer or the person who's supervising that just is in the opinion that the dogs can handle everything themselves and that we should not intervene, and it doesn't matter if a huge dog just runs over a little chihuahua. And of course, that would be a horrible experience for the chihuahua because, yeah, I don't think we have to discuss that. And whenever your dog is getting scared in a puppy class and nothing's done about that, he will just remember this experience. And sometimes a little more subtle things happen. For example, if the puppy class starts with the puppies arrive and then they get off leash and they start playing and rolling around and stuff like that, having a great time, then your dog learns whenever he sees another dog, he can just have fun and nobody's telling him anything and it's just a blast. So, of course, when your dog gets older and not everyone likes just youngsters approaching their own dog, and You try to set more rules and stuff like that, but your dog doesn't understand that, because until now, the rule was, I see another dog, I run towards them, and it's gonna be a great play date. And now there's a new rule where your dog cannot just approach every other dog. But why? So there comes the frustration. And there is something called a puppy license. And this is a really misunderstood kind of thing. Because what a lot of people think is that every adult dog is nice to a puppy. And that's just not true. And because of that, they let their puppy approach every other dog, and maybe they get to a dog who is not fine with a puppy. Or not fine with any other dog. But some dogs are just annoyed by puppies. And maybe that dog just overreacts a little bit, and it's a bad experience for the puppy. So this is something we should be very aware of. There is no protection spell or something over a puppy, and not every dog likes puppies. So if you have a puppy, or if you get a puppy, don't just let him approach every other dog. You can prevent so much with that. Of course, whenever a dog gets overwhelmed in a certain situation, or in general, he's more likely to react. Because every overwhelm is just a very intense and not really nice feeling. So, of course, we shouldn't just get the dog in a situation where that he can't handle. And if your dog is overwhelmed by the outside, there are some shelter dogs or puppies who can't just deal with every stimulus that comes close to them, and so they are just overwhelmed by everything. Then you should start with that and not train on the reactivity, because it's just too soon. And of course, we, on the other side of the leash, have our responsibility as well. And if we tense up and we are just very worried because there is another dog approaching, it translates to the dog. So we have a mood transition between human and dog, and whenever one of us tenses up, the other one feels it. So, of course, we should be the advocate of our dog, but we should also be aware of our own feelings. And if we get stressed by an encounter, it's totally okay, but we should start working on that too. So, let's have a look at how our dogs see an encounter. Again, whenever there is a dog, you can just switch it with human or whatever your dog is reactive to. Our dog sees another dog approaching, and he might start with some polite gestures, some sniffing the ground, trying to walk in a curve, looking away, something like that. But that doesn't work because there is a leash involved. Maybe it's a very short leash. There is a human involved, and maybe the human just wants to walk straight and not in a curve. And maybe it's just a very narrow path, so your dog can't really walk in curves, and he can't really avoid the other dog. So it doesn't work. The other dog is, in the meantime, getting closer. And the situation starts to become a little concerning for our dog, so he tries again with the polite gestures, maybe a little more obvious. Maybe he starts pulling away. And again, it doesn't work for the same reasons as before. And the other dog is getting closer. And now the situation becomes uncomfortable. So the dog might try to look at the human, get a little help there, and try to leave the situation as fast as possible. Again, this doesn't work because maybe the human doesn't understand what the dog wants, or maybe it's not possible because there are no escape routes or something like that. And maybe the human is shock frozen as well and can't really react. So what happens is the other dog still gets closer and the situation becomes unbearable for the own dog, and everything didn't work, and now our dog has only one chance, and that's to yell at the other dog to piss off. So whenever our dog cannot leave the situation, he will yell at the other dog to stop getting closer because it's uncomfortable. And now there is a really bad thing happening, because this is where our dogs are successful. Because the original idea of this whole thing was that the dogs pass each other and then the distance increases again. We are not approaching the other dog to just stand still and never leave again. So, and maybe the other owner is thinking, oh my god, what's that? And is leaving a little more, a little faster. She might be picking up the pace, or turning away, or turning around, or something like that. So the situation dissolves. And our dog learns that whatever he did last worked. And that was yelling at the other dog. Of course, a behavior that works will be shown more often. And a behavior that doesn't work will be eliminated. So our dogs will stop being polite and trying to walk away and trying to leave the situation. They will start yelling earlier and earlier and earlier with every encounter, because this is something that works. Of course, we don't want that, and therefore the distance is very important, but we will get to that. So, let's have a look at these polite things and how escalation happens. This is a little graphic from the British Small Animal Veterinary Association, and it shows our dogs different possibilities for leaving a situation. And in the green area, it's just about calming signals. We'll talk about those too. And your dog might show some lip licking, a little blinking, turning the eyes away, something like that. And he becomes more obvious the longer the situation is taking. So he might start turning more and more of his body away until he tries to just walk away and leave the situation. Again, the situation does not dissolve, so what can he do? He might start just dropping to the floor and freezing, and he might then start growling, snapping, and biting. Of course, this is something we don't really want, and we should react the latest when our dogs are yellow. So when they are still able to move, but they show clear signs of distress. So whenever our dogs get stressed in a situation, they have 5 possibilities on how to act. And these are very primal and very obvious signs or behaviors. So this is something that happens in the yellow or red area. And those are the 5 Fs. Some of those start a little earlier, and that would be the flight and the fiddle response, because a flight response would also be when your dog's turning the head away. He's increasing the distance, so he's leaving the situation. And fiddle is something that's very often confused with play, because the dog's just making a clown out of himself. He's just jumping around and being very overly something. He might start dropping into play pose very, very fast and just run around left, right, do something like that. So it might look funny to us, but it's a conflict resolving strategy. So your dog doesn't feel very nice. And the difference between play and fiddle is the roundness and the stiffness of the behaviors and the movements and the body. So when dogs are playing, the movements are very round, very relaxed, and even though they are fast, the muscles aren't really tense, and the face is relaxed and something like that. There are no raised hackles and stuff like that. And the tail is just also very relaxed and moving and stuff like that. And with fiddle, it's not. It's kind of the opposite. So it's very tense. It's very, very jumpy, not relaxed. There are some straights and straight movements and something like that. And it just doesn't look very soft. And if those don't work, we are again at the escalation and the aggression ladder, because those two are very, very early. And if it doesn't work, your dog might start to freeze. So he will move slower and slower and slower until he doesn't move anymore. And of course, the body is tense in this freeze, so you can see it. And if that also doesn't work, he has 2 more options. One is to fight and one is to faint. And for the dog, the worst one is faint. Because we see that very often if the dog is worked with punishment a lot, because he can't predict when a punishment will occur, he stops behaving. And that's where the faint come in. You might notice the similarity to learned helplessness, and it's actually the same. So faint is something where the dog has learned that no behavior will stop the punishment from coming. So if you think about it, this is really a very horrible feeling. So he stops behaving just in the hopes that he won't get punished. But very often that still happens. So yeah. And those dogs look very nice. So they look like the typical good dog. They don't do anything that they are not allowed to do. They don't react. They just don't do anything. They walk next to their human, head bobbing, and no sniffing, no looking, no anything. So, of course, that's the one you really want to avoid. And, of course, that's the one that we get when we use punishment. So, of course, don't use punishment. Yeah. No. What we don't want to do, and what is very often recommended with reactive dogs, is we don't want to overwhelm our dog. So we don't get him into situations where he can't cope and just say, oh, he has to get through that, because that way he will learn that nothing's happening to him. But it's already happening. So whenever your dog is in a situation where he can't really pull out some strategy and feel nice, something's happening to him. Whether he's afraid or whether he's frustrated, it's not nice, and that's what's happening. So don't get your dog in a situation he can't handle. And that's the same with starting at a point where he's already reacting. So when you try to get the attention of a dog who's already reacting, or try to wave a piece of food or a toy in front of his face and expect him to just turn around, it won't happen. That's not possible. Your dog is already very aroused and very excited, and he can't just switch to, oh yeah, let's eat. It's not happening. Of course, you should not use force or punishment. And that includes any tool that's designed to cause pain or discomfort. So every choke chain, every e-collar, every whatever there is, retriever leashes and something like that, they add to the problem. And this might seem surprising, but every collar, even the soft white collars that cover more than 2 vertebrae and are just very comfortable for your dog, it starts to become very uncomfortable as soon as your dog jumps into the leash. So we have again something that causes him discomfort, at least, if not pain. So your dog should be on a harness, and a well-fitting harness. So no harness that has some kind of straps that shorten and cause uncomfortable feelings. And of course also a harness where your dog is able to move freely. And so a Y-shaped harness. No harnesses with a strap in front of the chest. Those just restrict the shoulders, and your dog can't move freely, which is again uncomfortable. We can just put aside any dominance, rank, and philosophies like that, because it's just outdated. It's not dominant behavior when a dog's reacting, and it's no rank problem with you. So there are no ranks between dogs and humans, and even in groups of dogs, it's just, it's no hierarchy. So let's just forget about them. And ignoring the dog, most of the time ignoring the dog is not helping, because the dog is reacting and he's yelling at the other dog to go away. And if you ignore him, it doesn't change anything, because the other dog will go away and your dog will just learn that you didn't help him. So it doesn't really help. The only thing where ignoring your dog will help is if he's doing it to get your attention. But that's very rare. So, yeah. Don't ignore him. What you can do instead of that is start with the basics. Get a camera and film your dog when he's home alone. There are some very cheap little nanny cams you can use and doggy cams and stuff like that. And it's the only way to know if your dog's comfortable while he's alone. Some people like to use audio, but with the audio you can't really see if your dog is suffering in silence. You can only hear if he's moving, so it might not be enough. Use a relaxation protocol. A relaxation protocol is something where you write down whenever your dog is relaxing or sleeping or resting, and also his position and how his body is looking and stuff like that. So you know when your dog is relaxed and you know how your dog looks when he's relaxed. You can also try when he's not really in a deep slumber, but just lying somewhere and it's okay for him. You can touch him and see if you can get a feeling on how the muscles feel and look when they are tense and when they are relaxed. Especially in short-haired dogs, you can see it. So every PT and Staffy, you can see those muscles when they tense up. So this would be something you can write down in a relaxation protocol. If your dog's fine with that, you can also check for the pulse and the breathing frequency. For the breathing, you can just watch him. But the pulse, you can check on the inside of the thighs, and some dogs just aren't used to that or don't like it. So don't startle the dog when he's sleeping, but when he's just relaxed with you and so forth, something like that, you can check for that. And whenever you see some weird stuff going on in the gait, or if his tummy is just growling, he has diarrhea or something like that. So every gastrointestinal issue and many more, you should get checked out. Especially if you see rapid behavior changes and behavior that is weird in a situation. So your dog is too fearful, too aggressive, something like that, something that doesn't really fit. You should get checked out, because very often there is an issue with the thyroid, and only a specialist can tell you if there is or if there isn't, and you can get the proper medication if there is an issue, and therefore the training will become a lot more easy. Whenever you see an issue with the basics, optimize it. So when your dog is uncomfortable alone, start training on being comfortable alone. So that's a whole other issue, but it's very important. And if you see your dog's uncomfortable with any equipment you put on him, try to change that. The next thing is optimize walks. So use any kind of management. When you live in an area where you encounter the trigger very often, try to choose routes or times of the day where encounters are just less likely. Or you can also drive with your dogs in a remote area. So you can have a relaxed walk and again get a feeling for how it is to be relaxed and how it is to have a relaxed dog on the leash. The more we exercise those feelings and the more we exercise relaxed, we get used to that. And we know and we can remember how it feels, and that's important. Also for the dog. And try to watch the distance. try to establish a threshold, try to see where your dog's still comfortable with the trigger, and only in that distance you can work and you can train. If you get too close and your dog tenses up, leave the situation in any way possible. If it's a small dog and he's comfortable with it, you can pick it up. If it's a big dog, you can use management techniques to get the situation over as fast as possible and turn around, hide behind a car, get in a doorway, or whatever works for you. So avoid these situations as long as your dog's unable to handle them. And very important, get your dog to explore, get your dog in this seeking emotion. So watching the environment, exploring, sniffing, that's so important. It gets the brain into another state. So your dog's experiencing something nice outside and not just the reactive worry state of mind. So that's very important. You can also get your dog in a car and drive somewhere where you're sure there are no other dogs, but your dog can explore because it smells very interesting. Like some kind of construction site or something like that when there's no one working there. And of course, be safe. So no heavy machinery and stuff. But this can be very exciting for your dog and very nice for a change. Introduce rituals. Rituals are something that gives your dog confidence because he knows what's happening. And rituals can be introduced in the day-to-day life. For example, putting the leash on is always acted out the same. So you lower down a little bit, you turn sideways, whatever, your dog's doing a hand target, and then you put the leash on. Something like that. Doesn't have to be exactly that. But also encounters can be ritualized very easily, and your dog will feel a lot more comfortable because he knows what's happening. So, for example, whenever you see another dog, you address your dog, wait for a response, and then walk away. Something like that. So your dog knows, oh, all right, when I look at my human, the other dog won't get any closer and we will leave. That feels very nice. Let your dog make decisions so he gets a little more confidence. It doesn't have to be something big. It can just be, what kind of chew toy do you like today? Or what kind of treats do you like today? Or do you want to go left or right? Something like that, whenever it's possible. And same is for learn to say no. Your dog, not you. Of course, it's important for your confidence as well, but for the dog, it is too. So being able to say no to something gives you control over a situation, and control is something that's really nice for the confidence. And it's the same for our dogs. So for every husbandry thing, for every brushing and trimming nails and whatever it is you need to do with your dog, introduce a cooperation signal. So something where your dog is signaling you that it's okay to work on him, but if he stops the behavior, you stop the treatment. And that's how your dog can say no. And if you have a garden, it's also possible to ask the dog if he would like to go out. some dogs who are overwhelmed by the outside tend to run away from the harness because they know the harness means they are going for a walk and they can't handle that. So this would be another possibility to let the dog say no. Whenever he runs away, leave it be. Of course, if you have an apartment and you need to go out to potty and you need to put a harness on for that, it's no option. But whatever works for you. Increase body awareness. When we have a better feeling for our bodies, our confidence is increased. And the same is for our dog. So let him climb stones and balance over tree trunks or something like that. And let him go around some pylons or something like that. So everything that lets him feel, especially the hind legs and those areas, because very few dogs are really aware of their lower half of the body, and therefore they are less confident. And whatever you can do to increase that will help the confidence as well. Next thing is so important. Keep your focus on positive things. We tend to just see everything that's not working, but we don't really realize all the good stuff. So are you praising or treating your dog for doing stuff you like? And if not, why? I know we sometimes like to think, this is just normal and our dogs should just do that because it's a dog and it's normal. But it's actually pretty nice if your dog just comes when called and listens to his name and just gives you attention throughout the walk all by himself and stuff like that. For fearful dogs, it can also be marking and rewarding or praising everything that's normal for a dog. So sniffing, peeing, stuff like that. And again, this boosts the confidence. And it feels really nice, not only for the dog, but for you too. Whenever you look at your dog and you just see how great he is and how lovely he looks at you, even though there is, I don't know, a pee spot from other dogs around, and he could also just ignore you and go there sniff. But he's giving you his attention, so you should be, or you can be, grateful for that, and you can praise him for that. It doesn't always have to be food. You can just praise him. And whenever you feel a little down because the walk was again a disaster, you can remind yourself of the positive things. So what do you like about your dog? Write it down and just look at it whenever you don't feel, really nice about everything. And of course, you should be able to see stress signals early. So your dog doesn't have to be totally stressed out. But whenever he's showing some little signs, you should be aware of that. And we're going to talk about this. So this is a nice little drawing from doggydrawings.net. And it shows some of the stress signal and calming signals. Of course, every signal should be assessed considering the situation. Because a dog might just shake off some rain or he might just shake off stress. So this would be just an example. You can see every one of these stress signals in other situations where there aren't stress signals. Like yawning. Your dog might yawn because he just woke up. And he might yawn because he's about to make a decision and it's a little stressful for him. So those are important. Of course, you can see very obvious ones like whale eyes and crouching down and raised hackles and something like that. Turning away, turning the head away. Those are obvious, but there are more easily overlooked ones, like sweaty paws and stuff like that. So there are a lot of stress signals, and of course, the more early you see them, the easier you can react. Something I just want to mention, because it's not on the chart here, is drooling. And there is a huge difference between normal drooling and stress drooling, because the color changes of the saliva and the density too. So very dense white saliva is a stress signal. Normal drooling might not be. So yeah. Of course, excessive sniffing, peeing, some play bows that aren't really play but fiddle, lifting the paw, something like that. Those are all stress signals. Whale eyes, very often you see that when people are trying to hug the dog, that the dog's doing this, and that's a stress signal. So you can Google those. They are really easy to find, and watch your dog. You can just use filming, because then it's easier to see these things, especially lip licking and nose licking. Yeah, so that's a great tool for very easily see stress signals. And now, how can we do training? As soon as we have our threshold, so the distance where your dog's still comfortable, you can just work on the look at that game. And that's a little game where your dog is learning to look at the trigger and then look away. And of course, your dog gets more confident looking away, and that's something calming for the other dog, because your dog's not staring at them. And as soon as that's working nicely, you can start using alternative behaviors. Of course, you have to work on the alternative behaviors in other situations where your dog can learn them stress-free. You will have to use management, maybe for the whole life of the dog, because some dogs get really good with encounters, but there are just these one or two other dogs where it's not working. So whenever you see your dog in a situation where you know he can't handle this, or where you see he's getting uncomfortable, you can use management. And that's no sign of weakness or something like that. It's just making every situation nice for your dog. Of course, safe training partners would be great. So other dogs who are just very relaxed, very sure of themselves, and where you can be sure that they won't chase your dog or show any kind of aggressive behavior or something like that. So your dog can make just good experiences. And if you know people who have such dogs, they are great for training. And of course, you as the handler should work or can work on your own reactions to whenever the trigger appears on the horizon, and whenever you start with the heart racing and sweating and stuff like that, you know that you can work on that. And this is where our little bonus for today comes in, because I just want to get you started. It's great to learn about these things, but at some point we just have to start, and that point's today. So I have a bonus for you, and this is a little course for leash reactivity. We will cover everything we talked about, so every training step, every relaxation for you and your dog. You get training plans, you get videos for the training, so you can see of what I'm talking about and how this is exercised and stuff like that. And because it's absolutely basic for leash reactivity, you get the loose leash walking course as well. It's just a little course, but it changes so much, because you learn a nice way to get your dog to loose leash walking. It's no blocking, it's no tugging on the leash, it's no whatever tool. It's just a very easy and very nice way to get your dog to do exactly what you want. And of course, we talk about treats and other possibilities to reward your dog. So if you say your dog's not really that treat motivated or food motivated, you can use other possibilities. Of course, treats are very easy to use, and I would always recommend it, especially in the beginning, but there are other possibilities. And this webinar is being recorded, but it will only be available in the course. So this is another little tiny bonus. And of course, during the whole course, and you will have access for it with no limitation, no time limitation. You can work in your own pace, and you will also have the possibility to ask me any question. Of course, you have this possibility anyway, but in the course, you have the possibility to send me some videos, and I will get you my opinion on these videos, and maybe try to switch a little bit in the training, or give you special tips for this situation and stuff like that. So there is another possibility for you to just dive in and just start working on it and start changing, because having your dog stop reacting, he will not stop reacting because it's natural, but he will stop these escalations, and it's a whole new feeling. I can tell you that, because my dog doesn't react as much anymore. So he has just learned how to cope with situations, and it's so great. We can just walk anywhere we like, and of course I have to watch his fears, but I don't mind another dog approaching us, and I know it's the same for my clients, and I just want to give you that, because it's different. It's different from turning around every few steps. And yeah, every time you go for a walk, being worried that something might occur or some situation might happen, or maybe this time your dog is stronger than you or something like that. It's horrible. And you can change that. So yeah, let's just start. And if you see the recording of this webinar, then I would love for you to send me an email or a WhatsApp and just tell me your story. Tell me what it is for you. Tell me how you were feeling walking your dog, and how this is changing how you see things, and the training you do with your dog. All right, so I hope to see you soon and talk to you as soon as you start with your course. Bye!